Hey, world history, this is Miss Corey. Welcome to U11-L4, Intro to the Incas. Learning targets. Construct a narrative account about the emergence and expansion of indigenous societies in the Americas and or trade networks between multiple indigenous societies in the Americas using historical sources, and examine how new connections between the hemispheres resulted in biological, cultural, and technological exchanges. Evaluate who benefited from these changes and who did not. All right, your job, you're going to watch this Ed puzzle. Any question in blue text is going to be a question I want you to answer directly onto the Ed puzzle. And if you have any questions, please let your teacher know. We are here to help you. All right, so what do you know about the Inca Empire? Kind of a tough question. So today we're going to talk about the conquistadors. We're going to talk about Quipu as well. That's a really interesting thing that the Incans did. I won't give it away now. I don't want to spoil anything. You might think of Pachacuti and other Incan rulers. We'll talk about Pachacuti today. Or you might think of their architecture, such as Machu Picchu, which we will also talk about today. So here's our timeline here. We saw this on the last slideshow that we talked about. So we talked about the Olmecs last time, also the Mayans and the Aztecs. Now we got the Inca. The Inca is right here. All right, so from 1438 to 1533 is the Incan Empire. They ruled from northern to the southern Andes Mountains range. Today, that would include parts of countries such as Peru, Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, Argentina, and Colombia. Just a FYI, Inca can also be spelt with a K instead of a C. It means the same thing, just a different way to spell it. All right, so like I said before, the Inca civilization was mostly right here on the Andes mountain range, the heart of it being in Peru, but also extending all the way up here into the southern part of Colombia, through Ecuador, down through Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and parts of Argentina. So by 1525, Inca had a population of about 6 million people. That's pretty good. That's kind of a lot of people. They were a pastoralist society, meaning that they relied a lot on their pack animals, that being the llamas as well as the alpacas. So llamas and alpacas are important because they provide food, because of course you can butcher them, but also clothing because they have that fuzzy wool, and also transportation because they can haul things, especially up mountains. So you have to remember, before the Europeans came, North and South America did not have horses or camels or donkeys or cows. Pretty much llamas and alpacas were it. So, how did the Inca Empire come to be? They really gained power and land through military strength, but also trade routes. So, the more llamas and alpacas a society would have meant more trade that could be done, which meant more prosperous their society could be, which means that the more people could live there, which means that they could have a bigger and bigger military. They also farm things such as corn here. Here's a variety of what native Peruvian corn looks like: cotton, quinoa, which is this funky looking plant up here. It's a grain, by the way. And then potatoes. So you're like, whoa, those are potatoes? Yeah, that's right. Peru has some really colorful potatoes. So they're not all just brown like our russet potatoes that we buy in stores. They come in all these different colors. So, how did the Inca get the labor force to build some of these grand cities? That's a really good question. It's something called mita, and that is the labor for building large cities and road projects relied on the system of mita. Mita is a labor draft of commoners. So most of the land was owned by either religious cults, royals, and aristocrats. The government would draft male commoners to farm the land, to raise and herd alpacas and llamas, and to make artisan goods and, of course, building projects. These men would also serve as soldiers, craftsmen, and runners to carry messages across the Incan roads. So, government building projects through MITA included building and maintaining roads, bridges, such as this bridge right here, temples, palaces, and irrigation canals. Artisan projects through MITA also included textiles. So, that's the making of like clothing, for example, from like wool and cotton. So here's an example of what like a textile would look like. So this is a tunic or like kind of like a shirt that someone would wear. Also, beer was made out of maize or corn, and coca. So here's an example of what the irrigation canals look like in the Peruvian Empire. So you can see here, here's kind of a road, and then they would tear off this irrigation canal so the water would flow downhill. So under Mita, commoners built about 13,000 kilometers of road. So why are roads so important to an empire? For the Incas' case, it was to carry traders, especially with llamas and alpacas, and goods. Also, military troop movements. Of course, troops are going to move faster when they're on a paved road, and government officials as well to do diplomatic ties. As you can see, these roads aren't always the most easiest to build. So this one has a lot of winding up the mountain. All right, now let's talk about Cusco. So that was the capital city of the Incan Empire. Today, it is in what is modern day Peru. At the height of the Incan power in 1530, it had a population of about 30,000 people. Compare that to the Aztecs' Tenochtitlan, which we learned about. They had a height of a population of about 150,000. So definitely not as big as Tenochtitlan, but still 30,000 is still quite a good number of people. It's really a unique city because it has beautiful buildings carved by stone masons. And these stone masons were so finely carved that they actually don't need any mortar. So, mortar is that stuff that you put between bricks. So, like the bricks stay and they don't like shift around. But these artisans were so skilled that they could cut it so precise that it would make perfect seals without the use of mortar. Also, the city is laid out in the shape of a puma. So as you could see here, here's like the head of the puma. This is like the bird's eye view, by the way. And then we have the body, and then the tail, and the feet. The major temple was the Temple of the Sun. It was believed to be lined with gold interior and also had golden statues of llamas and corn, because of course that's really important for both religion and their economy. So next up, we're going to talk about Kipu. So look at this picture. What do you think quipu is used for? This is what a quipu is right here. Now, don't say I don't know or don't ask Google or AI. I just want your best educated guess. So, quipu are cords of cotton dyed and tied in knots. And each knot represents a way of record keeping. So, each of these strings mean a different thing, depending on what color it is, the type of knot, and the position. So as you can see here, all of these strings are different colors. Like this one's a little bit more yellow, then we got some orange, and then kind of like a deeper red. You'll also see knots are positioned differently throughout the rope as well. And depending on what type of knot also means something different. The hard part of Kipu is that there are so many of these, but historians do not know what they mean. So there's thousands of Kipu out there, but no one can decipher them yet. Then we have Quechua. So Quechua is the language of the Incas. It is still spoken today, and there are multiple dialects during the Inca Empire as well as today. So when the Spanish came to South America, the Quechua speaking people were forced by the Catholic Church to do forced labor of farming of unfamiliar crops. So, of course, when the Spanish came over, they brought with crops so they could live in the terrain. They would then force the Incan people to farm these crops, although these Incan people had never seen these crops before and they didn't know how to farm them. Also, the Incan people had to hand over food supplies to the Spanish, and they were forced to become Catholic. All right, now let's talk about Machu Picchu, probably one of the most famous places in all of the Incan Empire. It means Old Peak in Quechua, and is located between two mountain peaks in Peru. And it was an Incan city in the mid 1400s, the mid 1500s. So here's Machu Picchu right here. If you remember, Cusco was just a little bit up here, so not too far away. It is very famous because it is still completely intact. It was not destroyed by the Spanish. It also has terraced farmland, which I'll show you more of a close-up picture of that in a bit, where they've planted sweet potatoes and corn. It also includes plazas, temples, houses, and even a cemetery. So Machu Picchu was unknown to Spanish conquistadors, so it was never conquered and destroyed. It was abandoned in about the mid 1500s. Historians don't really know why. It might be because of the lack of water, because if you imagine if you're on top of a mountaintop, there's probably not a whole lot of water. So here's more of a close-up picture. As you can see here, all the buildings. Of course, the roofs aren't there anymore because it's been like 500 years. But you can still see the individual buildings, the little walkways. You can see the terrace farming too. I'll show you a better picture in just a few slides. All right, let's talk about Pachacuti. So he was an Incan emperor who ruled from 1438 to 1471. The reason why he became an emperor because he was royalty. His father was an emperor, but actually his father appointed Pachacuti's brother, Inca Urkon, to become the next emperor. Other aristocrats thought that Pachacuti should be the emperor. So there's this big civil war that breaks out between the two brothers, and Pachacuti becomes victorious. He expanded his reign into southern Peru as well as northern Ecuador. And he also did public works expansions, such as channeling rivers, leveling the valley floor, and building agricultural terraces on hillsides, like you can see here. So people would have to dig into the hillside to kind of make these flat steps. Then they would plant the crops on these flat steps. Because, of course, if you plant crops on a very steep slope, a lot of the time the crops just don't grow well, or there's the chance of them like sliding down the hill. So this way, that kind of solves that problem. And Machu Picchu might have also been built for him, but historians aren't 100% about that yet. All right, now the Spanish come. 1532, Spanish conquistadors come to Peru. They're led by this dude here. His name is Francisco Pizarro. He comes to Peru about 50 years after the civil war between Pachacuti and his brother. Although 50 years seems like a long time, it's still pretty shortly after that major civil war. So a lot of people are dead. The population hasn't recovered yet. So it's really a weakened and divided empire that Francisco Pizarro comes into. In the video U11-L5, you will learn a bit more about the Spanish's superior weapons, but also rival tribes to the Inca would actually team up with the Spanish to battle against the Incan Empire. And this is a really important aspect of it, and it'll talk about it more in the movie, because when the Spanish came, so when Francisco Pizarro came, he only had about 200 conquistador men with him. It wasn't like this gigantic army, just 200 people. That's really not that many. And through warfare and disease, they would defeat the Incan Empire. So by 1572, the Incan Empire has fallen. 10 million people now come under Spanish rule. 7,000 Incas are dead because of the war conflict. And get this, out of those 200 conquistadors, 0 of them are dead. By 1572, 20 to 25% of the Incan population is dead because of disease, things like smallpox. And the percent and exact numbers are really widely debated among historians. This is what smallpox is. You kind of get like these weird, like bumpy, rashy things. And it is very deadly, especially to the native population during this time, because they didn't have immunity to it. All right, let's wrap this up. We learn about the Incan Empire, Mita, Incan roads, Cusco, Quechua, Machu Picchu, Quipu, and Pachacuti. Next up, you're going to watch U11-L5, The Great Incan Rebellion. You're going to answer the questions directly on the video. I will be grading you on what questions you get right or wrong. Just know, in the video, I skip over about 20 minutes of the beginning of the video, just so this video is a little bit shorter and you can watch it in one class period. In that 20 minutes that I skip, all you really need to know is that archaeologists and forensic scientists found evidence in a graveyard that an Inca native was shot by a Spanish bullet, and this is the first found Inca native to die from a gunshot wound. All right, then after that, you're going to do U11-L6, The Age of Exploration Web Quest. So let me show that to you because it's a little bit of a different assignment. I'm sure you've done similar assignments in other classes. So what it is you're going to click on the links below and answer the questions below each of the links. So you're going to go to this website first, find the answers to the questions from that website, write them down here. Then you'll go to the next website, do the same thing, look for the answers, write them down here. Same thing for this website. Go to this one, write down the answers, and then there's 2 wrap-up questions at the very, very end that ask for your opinion. All right, and then you are going to do U11-L4 Basics of the Age of Exploration Part 1. I'll meet you back there for that ed puzzle because that's one of mine. And if you have questions, comments, or want to learn more, email your teacher. We are here to help you. Thanks for watching. Bye.